Hello, welcome back to the show. Today, I have somebody very special, someone who played a huge role in one of the most meaningful things that I have ever done. My guest today is Julie Prostance, #1 bestselling author. She has written many, many books herself, including the self-publishing workbook, which I'm very familiar with. And also, she's just making a huge impact in this field, really. Julie is an independent publishing consultant who has guided hundreds of heart-centered women to fulfill their dreams of becoming published authors, including myself, writing books that genuinely make a difference in the world. She lives in Melbourne with her miracle twin boys, another thing we have in common. So we'll have to chat about that later. Yes. But really, Julie has helped guide me through the process of writing and publishing my own debut book, Ayurveda and the Alchemy of Her. And I genuinely could not have done this without her. I didn't know where to start, what the whole publishing industry was all about. All I knew is I had something to say and I wanted to write a book. So today we're going to be pulling back the curtains on the whole journey for me personally, and for anyone in the audience who has a book inside them and is waiting for that to come out. Maybe they're a little bit shy about putting it out there. Maybe they just don't know where to start. We're going to help you with that. Well, Julie is, because this is her expertise. I can only give you my debut book expertise. So welcome to the podcast, Julie.
Thank you so much, Harmony. It is so wonderful to be here. Thank you for having me on.
I'm so excited because I have had lots of people come to me and ask me about how I publish, all these sort of questions like, how did I do it? How did I put my book out there? And I'm like, well, Julie, that's how I did it. And so I'm really happy to have you on here because I think so many of my audience will get something out of this and might even spark them to write their own story. And I truly believe we all have a story within us. We're such unique beings. I mean, I just recorded a podcast on why we're actually here. Like, why do we exist, right? From an Ayurvedic perspective. And it's really to know ourselves on a deeper level and know ourselves through consciousness, and to be able to put that out in the world is so special. But first of all, I would like to start by asking you, how did you get into helping women write and publish their own books? How did this all come about?
Oh my goodness, I'd have to go back years, like literally years. But I remember I was working for a law firm in Melbourne, Australia, and I was just thinking, there's got to be more to this than this, right? And so I escaped to London, and I was sitting there in a very depressing winter, and I was thinking, what am I going to do with my life? What do I really love to do? And then I realized that I loved writing and reading. And so I started to write. I just borrowed a laptop from a next door neighbor, and I started to write about things that I was passionate about: travel, human interest stories, food, etc. And then I started to realized that I loved writing books, So first of all, it became articles. Then somebody asked me to ghostwrite a book for them. And basically, ghostwriting is when you partner up with an expert in their field. They don't know much about writing, but I knew more about writing than they did. And so we partnered up, and I helped them write their health and fitness book at the time. And then I went on to ghostwrite another book, which was about baby sign language, and then another book about dating, and another book about cosmology. And then when I got back to Melbourne, I started working for a deaf children's charity. And I noticed that a lot of parents were ringing the national helpline saying, my child is deaf, will they ever lead a normal life? And I knew that they would lead a normal life, but clearly the message wasn't getting through. And so I decided to interview successful, happy, deaf and hard of hearing adults and families of deaf and hard of hearing children. And I put it together in a book. I interviewed them, had the interviews transcribed, and then I realized, how was I going to publish this? And I realized that only 1% of manuscripts ever get picked up by mainstream publishers. So I started to learn everything that I possibly could about self-publishing. I realized that you needed to hire a cover designer and a professional editor and a book layout person. And then you needed to publish the book and get it out there as a paperback and a hardback and an ebook. And so once I had taught myself this and made all the errors along the way, I was super pumped about this. And I published Breaking the Sound Barriers 9 Deaf Success Stories. And then I started to teach it. And it was during that time where I was teaching it at the Centre for Adult Education in Melbourne that loads of people started coming to me saying, "Can you teach me? Can you help me?" And so I just literally turned one client into a full-time business. And I've been doing that for the last 16 years. And there is nothing I love more than helping people go from an idea to an amazing high quality book that gets sold online as a paperback, a hardback, and an ebook. Exactly like you, Harmony. I mean, you're the perfect example of somebody that I love helping. You went from an idea to an amazing book and then became number one in 6 categories on Amazon. So
Yeah,
yeah.
it's still so surreal to me. It's still such a highlight and something that I'm really proud of. And I know it sounds a little bit funny, but I find it hard to be proud of myself for a lot of things because I just think a lot of the things that I do, everyone can do. And so, actually, writing and publishing a book that is based on my unique methodology, I think that was where I really was like, this is a legacy. I'm like leaving my work, my unique methodology in writing out to the world. And what I was even more surprised at, and I still am, like even I just got back from Bali not long ago, and even when I was in Bali, I getting more messages and emails about people have read my book and it changed the way they see themselves. It's changed, they've just beautiful comments. And I was sitting there with my husband at Changu over breakfast. I'm like, oh, I just got like another message. I just can't believe, like, because my book's been out for quite a while now.
Has it been a year? 6 months to a year? I
What?
reckon we published it in 2025, didn't we? Last year.
Yeah, yeah. So I think it was like around September, August,
Oh my
September.
goodness. So not long at all.
Yeah. Then I'm like still getting these sort of messages throughout the weeks, and I just yeah, it's really something to, I think, be proud of. And yeah, I was really happy with that. But I think the easiest part for me was actually to write the book because I know what I know and I know what I'm passionate about. And I had wanted to write a book for so long. I've had so many notes in the notes section of my phone, but I really wanted to finish my master's degree because I'm someone who's very good at doing a lot of things at once and then burning myself out. So I was like, no, Harmony. And sure be it, the minute I finished, again, went to Bali on a retreat and started writing my book. And that was fine. It was all the bits that came after that I was like, okay, now this is actually a process. There's all the editing, the typesetting, the covers, like that I knew nothing about. I didn't know how to organize it. I didn't even know really what an editor or a typesetter or all that did. All I knew was this is the words, go do, like put it together and put it out there for me. So yeah, I was amazed when I found you because there is so many people out there that have written a book and then say that they are book coaches. And I interviewed with quite a few and I was like, oh my God, this is never going to happen. Like, I can't find anyone that I align with. And then, like, from our first call, I was like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She knows.
Of the minds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you on behalf of those who are listening, how does someone know if they actually have a book in them? Like, how does someone really know if they've got a full book
That's a
inside?
really good question. I think it's the thing that you dream about, that you go for walks and you're just churning about it over your in your head. It could be a challenge that you've experienced and you've overcome that. Let's say, for example, it's an eating disorder and you've been through the horrors of going through an eating disorder, and then you've come out the other side and you feel like your lived experience can actually help others in the same boat. So you're not writing for everybody. If you write for everyone, you write for no one. You're actually writing for that person that you want to help. And that's what it's all about, the why. It's why you're writing this book. Why do you want to get it out there? And it's because you want to help others in that in the same boat as you, so that they read your book and say, I feel heard, I feel listened to. And, there is so much that you can say in a book. A lot of my clients, they will literally start with an idea and then they think to themselves, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to interview experts in that niche. I'm going to interview people for success stories or people who have been in that similar scenario. I'm going to research little exercises and key learnings and inspirational quotes that I can put into my book. So I always think of building a book like building a house. You're just literally putting in piece by piece by piece by piece. You would have found that with your book, Harmony. You didn't build it overnight. It was literally
Gotcha.
piece by piece, by personal experience, by case study, by key learnings, by inspirational quotes. And then you just put it together and it became this beautiful book. And it's something that just you can't let go of. I remember I had a student who came to one of my workshops. He wanted to do a book about commercial litigation for his work, and he ended up writing a Japanese cookbook because that lit him up. He was passionate about it. He was consumed with it. And so it's that thing, that topic that you are consumed with, that you're obsessed with, that won't let you sleep at night until the book is out there. That's
Yeah.
what you should write.
And I think also when you first have the vision to write something, you have a vague idea of what you want to write about and you sort of plot it out. But when I worked with you said a lot of those things to me, like, go and interview some more clients so you can put their stories in, go interview professionals, think about some, yeah, like nice quotes and stuff that you live by that you want to put in your book and how you want to present them. And that's why I was like, oh, I love like beautiful feminine goddess pictures. So I sort of lined up quotes with those pictures because you think that you're just writing like a novel or a book. You can't integrate different charts and pictures and all that. And that's not true. Like you can really make it your own art piece as well. And then you said to me, okay, now you need to go get someone to write, I always forget what it is.
Forward.
Yeah, like a forward. And what's the other thing called? If you don't get the forward, it's like the
So,
nice.
so there are testimonials that you can call in from various clients that you've worked with that you put at the beginning of your book. And then you have a forward, which is written
Yeah.
by someone that knows you, that's an expert in your particular field, who can endorse you, introduce you, recommend your work. And it just gives you more
Yes.
credibility at the beginning of your book. So
Yes.
I'm
That
not, yeah,
That's the one you said an endorsement, like who can endorse your book? And
correct.
I was like, I don't know, like I don't want to reach out to all these gurus in my field. How embarrassing! Because you got to send them your whole the manuscript so they can read it and see if they actually align with it and like it. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll just do it. This is so awkward and so embarrassing. And I had like the biggest guru in the field who I have learnt from, who's written so many books on Ayurveda, so many textbooks that he is absolutely amazing. Dr. Vasant Lad read my manuscript and wrote the most beautiful endorsement for my book. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this actually happened. He recommended my book. So I was really, really honored by that. And I think that just really helped my confidence when I was going to actually publish it to the public. And also Dr. Claudia Welsh, who is a pioneer in Ayurvedic and TCM medicine. She's also an acupuncturist. So she also wrote an endorsement. I was just hoping to get at least one of them, and they both sent it through. And I was just so happy about that. So I thank you for that little push, because that pushed my confidence in my work as well. Why do you think that there are a lot of heart-centered women who do have a story? Like I said, I believe everyone has a story. Everyone has something that they can teach someone. But why do you think there are so many women who they want to write a book, but they just don't, even though they know they should and they
I love
could?
this subject. Absolutely love it. It's very close to my heart because the heart-centered women that I work with, they are super busy. So they are juggling children, elderly parents, massive jobs or businesses, and most of them don't have time. If you look at it, they've got no time. But what stands out to me is, well, I got inspiration from Glennon Doyle, who wrote Untamed. And she said that she had 3 children and a business, and she was finding it really, really hard to find the time. And so she ended up going to bed with her children, so around 8:30, and then getting up at 5 and writing her book. And that's how she got her book Untamed out into the world. And I think for most of us, we need to make that commitment to write the book. We are not going to have a month off. We are not going to do that. It is about reprioritizing your life so that you fit writing into your life. And Julia Cameron, who is the author of The Artist's Way, she's got a practice called morning pages where you wake up 30 minutes earlier than you normally do and you start writing your morning pages, which is really essentially about getting out all the angry, whiny stuff that is on your mind. It's all in there, all your to-do lists for the day, all the things that you're annoyed about, and you get those out onto the page and then you get to the other side, quote unquote, in Julia Cameron's words, and the magic starts to happen. So the intuition kicks in, you start to show up to the page and it starts to unfold. You start to get all those buried dreams that you have long since forgotten about. All of those ideas start to flow. And so what happens is there are so many things that stop us. For example, time is a big thing. Also, imposter syndrome is a massive thing. Who do I think I am to write a book? I am not a writer. Who do I, people are going to think I'm crazy. People are going to criticize my words. The thing is, it's more terrifying getting to the end of your life and having done nothing. You've got one life, and it's about quieting the censor and saying, I can do this. I can have an editor polish up my work. I can have a ghostwriter polish up my work. I can have a ghostwriter write the whole thing for me if I want to, in collaboration with me. But it's about getting your work out into the world. It's about progress, not perfection. It's about carving out those little pockets of time. I was talking to one of my clients the other day. She's got children, and she said that her pockets of time are at when she's watching her child play sport, and she takes notes on her phone and writes notes on her phone. That's her writing time. So really, there's no excuse for no time. Imposter syndrome affects everybody. Even the most successful of authors are crippled by that perfectionism and lack of self-doubt. But it's about overcoming those, just stepping over them and saying, you know what? I'm going to feel terrified anyway. It's about doing it anyway, isn't it?
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
would know that, Harmony.
Yeah, absolutely. And you prioritize what's important to you. And if getting your work out there, getting your wisdom out there, building a legacy, all of that is a priority, you're going to make it happen. Like I was studying a master's degree, running a business, teaching, got twin boys as well, like doing a lot. And I prioritize the time. And I didn't do the morning pages because for me, that's when I like to do my movement. I've got my own routine in the morning, but I found that I love to just get into a flow and block out like a couple of hours of a time at a time. And so on a Sunday, I would look at my calendar ahead and I would literally block out like it was work. So I was like, this is my writing time. And that is so important to me that I'm not letting anything interrupt that time. And so I saw it as a job because it kind of is. If it's part of your work as well. One other reason at the moment, I think that a lot of people are putting off writing a book, and I would love to discuss this with you because even I was writing mine before AI came into its sort of heyday in the last year because it takes a long time to write. Now we've got AI and people are just AI writing books left, right, and center. So there's more books than ever. There's more things written, more content. And I feel like I don't know, people are like, well, what's the point? Like people will just write it on AI anyway. People won't like see this as my work or whatever it is. What are you seeing around AI and authorship at the moment?
Oh my goodness. This subject we could speak about forever. Do you know what? AI, so you can generate a book in a few seconds. I could literally go to ChatGPT or Claude and say, write me a nonfiction book about eating disorders, and it would be churned out in 2 minutes. The thing is, human beings do not connect with AI. They connect with heart and soul. They connect with your unique story, your personal experiences, your clients' personal experiences. They feel when a book has been written by AI. People aren't stupid. I just go to social media these days and it's just one AI chat GPT post after another. People don't connect with that. They prefer the clunky words, the messy words that speaks to them like you would speak to a good friend over AI. And that's where you're going to win, because when we come to publish your book, Ingram Spark and KDP ask questions. They say, did you generate this using AI? Did you use AI for the book with regard to images, cover design, text? And you need to tick boxes, and they've got automated means of finding out whether you used AI or not. So won't it be so amazing for you if you tick the box no? Because you know that you're going to stand out above the crowd. You cannot be an author when you've generated a book using AI. I've seen instances where people have used AI as a tool. So they've used, they get stuck, they get writer's block, and they say, what am I going to,
Hmm.
how am I going to create a structure for my book? That's when it's useful. But I would highly recommend, if you generate any text using AI, that you rewrite it from your own perspective from scratch, because people are going to feel that, and they know they're not stupid. They know what's written by AI and not, and they're going to feel that in your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, it's kind of a little bit frustrating because the first thing people sort of ask these days is, like, did they write it or did they not write it? And I remember like I said, like I was writing before the sort of boom of AI, but in my book, I wrote a sentence about the tapestry of life. And Carol, I don't know, do you know Carol King, the singer?
Yeah.
Like an old school, and
Yes, yes.
her album Tapestry. So I've always loved that album because my mum used to play it when I was a little girl. We used to sing it in the car. I love the album Tapestry. And we would actually, my mum's a bit of a hippie. So a lot of, we had tapestry bags and all of that kind of stuff. So I used that word and used that terminology. And then all of a sudden, I know when ChatGPT first started becoming a thing, it was using that word a lot. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like now why? I don't know if it was just because maybe I've spoken that way and you know how our phones listen to us and all this. I don't know. But it sort of shook me a little bit. And I was like, oh, bloody hell. Like, how are people going to tell the difference? But I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to write from my heart and let the editor support me in saying, hey, you might need a reword and write this. Also, the editors don't rewrite stuff for you. I was surprised. You have to go rewrite it. Is that like the normal case, or is that just my case?
Well, so you and I used the same editor, didn't we? Courtney
Yeah.
from the
Yeah. She was
US.
amazing. Love
She
her.
is amazing,
Yeah.
absolutely amazing. Talking about AI, for example, so I asked her to edit according to the US Chicago Manual of Style, which uses
Yes.
M dashes. And M
Yes.
dashes are a key
Same.
of AI. And so now I'm thinking, oh God, everyone's going to think I'm using AI for my book, but I didn't
Exactly.
use a shred of AI. It's just common to the US Chicago Manual of
Yes.
Style. But with Courtney, it's a question of asking her. So in some instances, I would say to her, this is really clumsy. I need this rewritten. And then in that instance, she would rewrite it for you. So it
Oh,
really
okay.
depends on what level you want of editing. There are different levels of editing. Some just do a structural edit or a copy edit, which is crossing T's and dotting I's and doing the grammar and the spelling. But in some instances, she can ghostwrite passages for you or ghostwrite text for you or rewrite certain paragraphs. So it's really the level that you want. But when you're working with an editor, it's a collaboration. It's about asking for what you want, same as your interior. When you worked with Sophie, you asked her for what you wanted. You said, I want these images, I want this text, I want this font and this layout and spacing. And then it comes together beautifully because it's what you want. It's your book, your way. And that's what's so beautiful about self-publishing, is that you get to determine all the beautiful parts to your book.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's probably why I personally found the editing part the hardest and the longest because I never asked her to rewrite anything for me. So she'd give me all of her suggestions, even like cutting out sections, which I cut out some sections and adding sections. She's also asked me, you need to actually add more around this and all that. And so there was like more writing and yeah, more work. That's exactly right. I was like, oh
You just wanted to get rid of it.
I don't know about this. It was more work for me. But yeah, that was like the most interesting and probably the longest process that, that I sort of, yeah, went through. And what you mentioned before about self-publishing versus traditional publishing, I think that's really important to speak about because a lot of people think, well, if I write a book, I've then got to go find a publisher. And
Mm.
how am I going to do that? And what, like, if I self publish, will that look like I don't even know how to do that or where to begin? And that was me. I was like, I'm going to self publish, but I don't know how. And that's when I found you. So, can you just explain the difference between traditional publishing and self publishing?
Sure. So traditional publishing is when you seek out a traditional publisher, a mainstream publisher, someone like Simon and Schuster or Penguin to publish your book. But the thing with that route is only 1 to 2% of manuscripts ever get picked up by mainstream publishers. So most people will send an email with a manuscript and it will literally take weeks, months, and years to get published by a mainstream publisher, which is why I'm firmly on the side of self publishing. So, self publishing is independently publishing your own book. It's not suggesting that you do everything. You still hire the experts. You hire a cover designer, you hire a book layout, a formatter, you hire, if you want to, hire somebody like me who helps you publish your book, or you can do it yourself. But you take full control. You set yourself up as the publisher and the author. So you own the IP and you own everything about your book. You get to change the pricing. So we set you up on the publishing platforms. You get to determine the title, the subtitle, the book description, the pricing, all of those kind of things. And you can edit and change that at any point. If the book's not selling, then you can change the price. You can run all sorts of deals and that sort of thing. And you don't have to answer to anyone. Whereas if you go through, say, Penguin, if Penguin picked you up, if you're lucky enough to get accepted by a mainstream publisher, then you would normally wait 18 months to 2 years for your book to come out. Now, I don't know about you, Harmony, but I did not have an extra 2 years to wait for my book to be out in the world. I
I'm
wanted
way
to.
too impatient.
Exactly. I wanted it done yesterday, and especially with my book, for example, the self publishing workbook, all the technology is changing all the time. I cannot afford to wait 2 years for a mainstream publisher to publish my book. I wanted full control. And so that's why I put it out into the world as quickly as I could. Same as you. You wanted it out into the world and full control. And that's what you get. And the bonus is full transparency on the royalties. So you get to see how many books you're selling, what royalties you're making. You're not, yes, you have to split them with the publishing platform like Ingram Spark. They take a percentage, same as KDP, but you get 70% of the royalties. And it's in your bank account, directly into your bank account. You don't have to worry about splitting them with a traditional publisher. Usually you're left with 10% of net receipts, which is less than $1, whereas you can make $10 a book. So, I'm self-publishing all the way. And the beauty of self-publishing is when they see your book out in the world, a number of my self-published authors have been approached by mainstream publishers saying, wow, you've done amazing things in the world. You've got a solid sales track history. You've got a beautiful book. So we'd like to work with you. And then they go on for their next book to work with the mainstream publisher. But you have a choice. And that's the beauty. You can do both. You can self-publish and you can be picked up by a mainstream publisher if that's what happens for you.
Yeah. And so, just briefly for our listeners who are going, okay, maybe I should write that book I've always dreamt about. What does the process actually look like from idea to published book if we just step through the phases?
Yeah, sure. So you would write your book. So you could work with somebody like me, for example, who guides you by the hand, and I do sessions, and we'll look at your title, your subtitle, where you're going to fit on Amazon in the categories. And the reason why I start with Amazon is because Amazon is responsible for 70% of the book sales. So we need to make sure that you fit in those certain niche categories. And We start with the end in mind. And then you start writing your book. So you have a word count to your book. You decide what you're going to tell your ideal reader, because you're not writing for everybody. You're writing as though you're speaking to a good friend, somebody that's going to benefit from the message or the story in your book. So, and then you would write, say, a chapter a week, or 1,000 words a week, or however, whatever you're going to set that as a deadline for yourself. And then once your book is together, we then put it into the book template, which basically means you have it's set up like a real book. So it's got your back cover blurb, it's got your about the author bio, it's got your praise pages if you're going to have testimonials, and your forward, your endorsement. Did you want to say?
Template. Yeah, I was going to say that template was how I saw it all come together. If you hadn't have given me that template, I would have been so, so lost. So that is such a
Gold.
magical thing that you, yeah, that you give people. Yeah.
Saves people literally
Years
hundreds
of
of hours,
work. Yeah.
years of work. And then you put it all together in that template, and then you go to your editor. Well, actually, I would go a step back, and I'd go out to some beta readers, who are your trusted 5 to 10 beta readers in your target market, and they will give you invaluable feedback on your book. I think you need to add a few more stories. I think you need to talk more about this. I think you would be offensive if if you use that particular term for your readers, etc. Things like that. So then you implement your beta reader feedback. Then you go to a professional editor who shapes up your book into a gem. In the meantime, while you're waiting for the editor to do it, or to edit, you're doing your cover design. So we go to a platform which gives you a myriad of cover designs, and then you narrow those down to, say, 6 cover designs. You do a poll to your audience, which is what you did. Remember seeing it on social media, and you get your audience to vote on the cover, so that you end up with a cover that people will buy, not something that doesn't appeal to your audience, because a cover is everything. And then thereafter, you get the edits back from the editor, you implement all of those edits, and then it goes to the book formatter. So I've got someone on my team called Sophie who lays it out beautifully. And then it comes to us as a cover file and an interior file, and we upload those onto the publishing platforms. So we do a sample first, make sure that you're really happy with that. Then you do your hardback version if you're going to do a hardback version, and then you go across to Amazon KDP, make that live, and that goes live within 24 to 72 hours. You do a massive campaign, so you're marketing heavily to your audience. Hopefully you get to number 1 in your various categories like you did. You got to number 1 in 6 categories. And then you do your ebook, you do another bestseller campaign where you're doing the same thing. And then you go live across all the different platforms. And thereafter, it's all about marketing a book, because if you're not marketing your book, no one's going to see it. So you would do
Exactly.
things like Amazon ads, podcasts like this, for example, sharing your message so that more people get to know about your book, because otherwise it's like a pair of shoes. It just sits there gathering dust. Nobody knows about it until you're actually marketing it, sharing it with the world. Because remember, it's not about you. It's about helping those people who you're on the earth to serve. In your case, it's Ayurveda. You wanted to impart the benefits of Ayurveda to your audience, and that's why you wrote the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got 2 slightly different questions, but the first one is, what would you say makes a book high quality? And also, what is the benefits of someone who, because I have a lot of health and wellness business owners listening to this podcast. So for those in the health and wellness business, what is like the benefit of them writing a book as opposed to, I don't know, doing something else in their business?
My goodness, a book is everything. It gives you so much credibility and leverage. Once you've written that book and it's out there, it's like doors start opening for you. You would have experienced this in in your niche. It's magic. It really is magic. You can't appreciate it until you've actually done it. So opportunities start coming to you. I remember when I published the self-publishing workbook, I decided that I wasn't going to do much marketing because I've previously done lots and lots of marketing for my other books. So I wasn't so much interested in that. But marketing opportunities came to me anyway. So the ABC approached me and said, "Would you like to do an interview?" And I thought, "How did you how did you
Yeah.
even know that I wrote the
Amazing.
book?" So, doors start opening. It gives you credibility. It gives you authority. You have the ability of partnering up with influencers that you previously maybe they weren't open to you before, but now all of a sudden you've written the book and published the book, and now you're a leading expert in this area. And one thing that I encourage everyone to think about is you don't have to be an expert before you wrote the book in an area. If you're passionate about something, start writing the book, because by the end of the book, you'll be an expert in that area. By the time you've done the interviews and done all of your little research and various on blogs and websites and podcasts and everything, you will be the expert in that niche. So who you went in as is not the same person as when you came out. I mean, you would have experienced that too. Who you
Yeah.
went in as is not the same person. You've changed exponentially. It's like birthing a baby. Once it gives you so much confidence, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It gives you that feeling of joy and self-esteem. And it's just, I don't know, it's hard to describe it until you're actually holding your book in your hand. That feeling is just hard to describe, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think specifically as well when you do share parts of yourself and your story in the book, for me I did, and I've always been kept a lot of things close to my heart, but also been very open in other ways. But I sort of let my whole story be told within the book as well, because it was, Ayurveda and the alchemy of her. So it was taking my clinical wisdom, but also my personal journey. And it kind of felt like this sort of relief at the end as well, like of like just this is who I am and this is everything about me. And so
Yeah.
I have a lot more confidence to show up, whether that be on social media, in podcasts, because I've already spilt everything, I've put it out there.
You
So
know,
I think, yeah.
Harmony, it's so funny you should say that, because Dr. Brene Brown, who is a shame researcher and the best-selling author of Daring Greatly, The Gifts of Imperfection, The Atlas of the Heart, as well as numerous other books. She incidentally was self-published. So nobody would publish her first book, and then she published herself, and then she was subsequently picked up by a mainstream publisher, and the rest is history. But she said the key so vulnerability is the key. It's the birthplace of connection, love, and belonging. And without vulnerability, you've got nothing. There is no joy and satisfaction without vulnerability. So it's kind of like sitting in a group of women. I always think of this. You're in a group of women, and somebody asks you a question, and you can go two ways. You can be vulnerable about the truth, or you can pretend. And by being vulnerable and sharing your personal story, you open up the space for others to do the same. And it's the same in your book. You were vulnerable about your postpartum journey, and a lot of mums, including me, related to that incredible sense of overwhelm after you've had given birth to twins, and what do I do next? As well as other personal experiences that you'd had along the way. It makes me feel closer to you because you see me. I feel heard and seen and witnessed. And because of that, I like you more. I trust you more because you've opened up to those stories. And it's the same when you are vulnerable in your book and share those personal stories, you increase the trust of your readers.
Yeah, I actually went on a podcast the other day talking about Ayurveda women's health based on my book. And the interviewer, she was like, I feel like I already know you because I've read your book. I even know like your mom and your mom's story. So I already know you. So the interview process was really easy because she felt so connected already, which was really nice.
It's so true.
So true. So what would you say sets a good book apart from the rest?
Your personal stories. So, your personal stories, stories of other people, because nothing connects a reader like stories do.
Yeah.
You're going to remember the stories. You're not going to remember the facts or the large chunks of text. You're going to remember the stories. That's what's going to connect you. Layering your book. So having a story and then discussing it in a way that's relevant to your reader, then a case study and discussing it in a way that's relevant to your reader, having key learnings, images, inspirational quotes. Having a layered book is so much better, and also a high quality book. So we're not just going to publish something and without all the checks and the balances. So it's going to have a beautiful cover design that is chosen by your target market. It's going to have input by your beta readers. It's going to be professionally edited. It's going to have all the little nuts and bolts on a book cover, like your publishing logo and your publishing name and your barcode and things like that. All these little things that add up to a really, really high quality book, so that you can go into bookstores and say, here's my book, and they're not going to reject it and say, oh, it looks self-published. It actually looks mainstream published. That's what's going to differentiate you from the other self-published books out there. And, you've been through all the checks and balances. You've done exactly what a mainstream publishing company would do with your book. You've had it professionally edited. You've had the beta readers, the cover design. You've done everything. You've done it all right. And as a result, you will reap those rewards of having sales and speaking opportunities and podcast opportunities and all the wonderful things that come with writing a book and publishing it and getting it out into the world.
I'm
Yeah.
actually already writing my next book. I'm co-writing with
You
my
didn't know.
yeah, business owner. Yeah, but it's a textbook this time. So it's an Ayurvedic
Awesome.
textbook to align with our course curriculum, and it's a much different process because it's like more clinical. Yeah, which is interesting. So it's taking a bit longer as well.
Could you put in some stories, or is it just not that sort of book?
Yeah, I mean, the first definitely did because I wanted to create a connection in the first chapter. I mean, to be honest, I've only really finished the first chapter, which is
Mhm.
philosophy. So it's all about Ayurvedic philosophy in the background, the Sankhya philosophy. So it's got like the clinical connotation to it, but I have weaved in myself and my business partner's stories and stuff as well, just to because I like examples. And
Yes.
I want the textbook to be a little bit different to such a dry, you know, quote unquote, what textbooks usually are. So I did want to make it a little bit different. So that chapter's fine, but it's like moving through the next few that are a bit like can be quite clinical. Just,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
exactly. You said something really important there about working with dry, material. I think for mine, for example, my self-publishing workbook is very similar to, it's got a textbooky feel because
Yeah.
there's a lot of learning in that book. But one thing I didn't want to do was I didn't want to take my computer and write my book on my computer. I wanted to go to the library, get a sketchbook and handwrite it, because that way I just felt that it was different. It was fun. It was inspiring. I put in really, movie music or classical music or music that would inspire me. And it made it a really fun, inspiring process. So for your listeners, I would encourage, if you don't want to just sit down and bang out a book that because it feels like work, take yourself off to a cafe or a
Yeah.
library for a couple of hours and make it fun. Handwrite it,
Yeah.
or voice to text it. You can use Dragon Naturally Speaking or a whole plethora of different voice to text devices these days. It doesn't have to be a boring process. It can be really fun, can't it?
Absolutely.
And implementing a whole lot of stories into your textbook can make it also really engaging for your readers.
Mm. I did a lot of writing out definitely outside of the home, most of it, to be honest, because I found that's where I got my inspiration. So as I mentioned, I started it in Bali, which I wasn't planning on it. I was just at the retreat and I was having these really great deep conversations with people that really resonated to what I wanted to write in the book. So I just pulled out my laptop one day and started writing it there. But then when I was back at home, I was going to different cafes and really making an exciting journey of it. So I'd block out the time and then I might write what cafe I'll go to today. And yeah, it was really cool. I actually loved the process. And that's why I was like, oh, I'll do another book, but it's a little bit of a different process now. But yeah. And also, you were like, we've spoken a lot about nonfiction books, but you also help people write fiction books as well.
So I help publish them.
Yeah,
So yes, so
publish.
if
Yeah.
somebody comes to me, it's the very similar process. So
Hmm.
if someone comes to me with a fiction book, then we can do exactly the same. You know, we look for a cover that fits that category. We get beta reader feedback. We go to an editor who specializes in fiction, and we publish it. So same, exactly the same process. Only you're just targeting your specific categories in that niche. So every niche is different. It's just, it's the same. But
Yeah.
in terms of helping them write fiction, no. I'm not a fiction expert. I'm a non-fiction expert.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. But I also help with children's books as well. Children's books, it's amazing how my clients they'll go from non-fiction and they'll swap over to children's books. So you can do it all, it's fun. Once you get the as you've
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll be coming back to you once I've written most of the content for my textbook, but don't think it'll be anytime soon. I feel like this is a long journey, this one. But where can our listeners who are thinking, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to write and self publish my first book? You have published a book on self publishing book. Yeah. Yes. And well, I highly recommend Julie. As I said, I will be going back because the hard for me, the hard part is all of you know, the other bits. I'll write, I'm happy to write, but all the other bits, I definitely still need support and guidance. In saying that, I do have your self-publishing book and I use that as a manual. Like it was so, so, so good. But you also have all the connections to the amazing editors and typesetters and all of those people that you need to know as well. So it's really worth working with Julie. I can definitely vouch for that. And if you have been sitting on this book idea, I hope that this conversation has given you the permission that you needed, maybe, or the push you needed. And as I mentioned, Julie's a real deal. She helped me bring something I'm incredibly proud of into the world, and she can do the same for you. So I'm going to be leaving her links in the show notes. And what she offered you guys is so generous to be able to sit down with her and flesh out the ideas of your book and what it would look like bringing that to life. And that's a really, really exciting prospect. So please, if this episode's resonated, you know anyone who's interested in writing a book, share this episode and reach out to Julie if you want any more information. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you.